Call the city council work session to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining.
Here.
Germaini.
Here.
Stringham.
Here.
Felder.
Here.
Hader.
Here.
Stilgrave.
Here.
Mayor Clark.
Here. Next.
The next item on our work session is public comment.
I'll ask if there's any public comment other than staff and administration. I'm not sure anybody, but any public comments? Seeing none. Next item is?
The next item is under the work session agenda, item 5445, review of proposed naming policy amendments.
Okay, we have two items. Manager Robinson. Guess we're going to start with the naming policy.
Yes, we'll start with the naming policy amendments, and I think, the naming policy when it was created, and as we've received a couple applications for naming stuff, we've recognized that there might be ways of condensing that with what we have in our parks rules and what have you, along with some, that we could refine and add some things to make it just a little bit better and more complete. And Director Cochran and I and Clerk Lavoie have met a couple times on this, and I think we've come up with something, and Director Cochran has created a nice point to kind of walk us through what our recommended changes would be.
Thank you. I know when we started with some entertaining some applicants or interest, I know when the clerk reviewed it, there's some, not conflicts as much as clarity that needed regarding the ethics board and when their role was, and then with the parks with naming there. So I look forward to the presentation. Mr. Cochran.
Yep. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, Clerk Treasurer. So I won't repeat what's already been said, but I figured we could start just for a refresher because this was a policy that was adopted by, again, this is a policy, not an ordinance. So City Council has the authority to change the policy in accordance to your wills and desires. But on June 20th, 2022, City Council adopted a new policy related to the naming of public property. In some of the information, you've got the draft that was, or the proposed draft in your packet that shows the red lines, but everything else is the original information. So the existing policy developed a workflow. So an online form was created where people can request that a piece of public property can be named after something or somebody. And once that application is reviewed, it gets reviewed or received, it gets reviewed by city administration. And then it's put forward to the ethics committee for their review and a recommendation to council, who has the final say on whether to approve the naming request or not. The policy addresses the naming of, and I quote, parks, alleyways, recreational areas, municipal buildings, facilities, and public right-of-ways. As we began to put this in action and started getting some discussions from the community as well as requests, we noticed that some of the amenities that have been requested for naming don't necessarily neatly fit any of those definitions, and there weren't definitions of these items included in the original naming policy. Just a review to the criteria and the purpose of the naming policy to recognize native wildlife, flora, fauna, or natural features related to the community and the city, to celebrate our local history, places, events, ancestral, and community culture, to strengthen neighborhood identity and cohesiveness, and to honor and commemorate noteworthy persons associated with the city. There was a definition of noteworthy persons and provided some guidance, and these are individuals, a local or regional leader with strong identifiable ties to the community or specifically to the area connected for the public property being named, a city resident who has distinguished themselves in community service, public service, or an individual with strong contributions to the city, or a resident or former resident who lived at least 10 years in Monroe, who through distinction has brought prominent recognition to the city at the state, local, or international level. And then to be eligible, there had to be demonstrated excellence of contributions to the city's development or community service, personal sacrifice for public service or national defense, or efforts to foster equality and equity among the citizens of the city. And then, or a demonstrated contribution to arts, culture, or historical significance, either locally, regionally, nationally, or globally, with local ties and regional ties. And then there is a requirement that the naming can only be done posthumously or after they pass away with a waiting period of at least 3 years. So those are all items and criteria that were left and unchanged in the proposed recommended policy amendment. But some other provisions, the renaming of property once it's been named is discouraged. Council reserves the right to rescind approval at any time, and that talks about some guidelines and criteria of when that may be appropriate. And then the approval is good for a period of 25 years, but after that 25 years, there is a process to consider a renewal of that for additional length of time. So associated with that was the item that city administration, if council were to consider the request or approve the request, there would be a development of what would the fee be. So if we had to change signs, if we had to build signs, if we had to, any costs associated with the implementation of that renaming, there was a flat fee. 50% of the cost would be required to be paid upfront by the applicant prior to design and implementation. And an endowment fund is required for ongoing maintenance, which is 10% of the total project cost. So that's the current policy, and there is some recommended revisions to that language in the proposed amendments too. So the need for updates. Again, as we were putting this policy into practice, we identified that there needs to be some definitions of what is the public property. For instance, recreational areas. We know the naming of parks was one piece of criteria, but what was the intent or what was the reason behind recreational areas? And we'll talk a little bit about that. It does call out that the naming of park amenities would be covered under a separate park policy, but right now there is not a separate park policy related to the naming of park amenities themselves or areas or amenities within a park. The Parks Department, or our department, does have a policy for commemorative trees and benches in the parks, but it doesn't talk about amenities or other things. And so we thought, given some of the requests that we had, there was some fine tuning that we could do the policy and bring that back for your consideration. So in the packet are some of the revisions. The first is providing some clarification through definition. So we originally talked about buildings, facilities, and public property. And so we broke down and categorized what is public property. We created a new definition for major facilities, which are buildings, streets, standalone trails, so trails that are not within a park. Think about the new loop trail that we're building that goes from Front to 7th Street, or even the Heritage Trail that doesn't go within a park, but it's a standalone trail, although it's connected to a larger trail network. The parks themselves, bridges, alleys, right-of-ways, things of that sort. And then we created another definition for secondary facilities. So this would deal with things like park amenities, tennis courts, playscapes, pavilions, items that are within the park, which are a feature or a component of a major facility. So the other option or another consideration was a conference room or a room within a facility or a room within a building. Also wasn't called out. Do we follow the traditional naming policy as it was written? And some of the challenges with that are, if we're naming a room and putting a plaque up, are we going to require a 50% deposit for that? Are we going to require a 10% endowment for the maintenance of that plaque? And so we wanted to create some flexibility or levels to the policy. And so secondary facilities were addressed as an amenity or an identifiable space within a major facility. Does that make sense? Okay. The other thing that has come up as of recent are dedication displays. So one of the things that we've talked about internally that we wanted to have a discussion with council is when we name a facility, i.e. the Arthur Leslie Community Center or the Lillian Navarre Library, generations past, do they understand the significance of who Arthur Leslie or Lillian Navarre were to our community? And so actually, and you'll hear about it in tonight's next presentation, we're creating some displays within the facility that talks about the significance of Arthur Leslow, so people understand why the building is named after him. Or the Lillian Navarre Library, who was she and what was her significance? What were her accomplishments that warranted naming a library after her? And so we talked about what is the review process for that? Is City Council going to leave it up to us as staff to develop those and have free reign before it gets mounted? Or do we want another level of review with that? And so the dedication display, whether it's within a facility like these displays, or if we name a street, or if we name a park and want to have an exhibit, wayside exhibit, say Munson Park. Who was Mayor Munson? If there's a display that's put out telling his story, who's writing that and what is the review process for that? So the guidelines and the process, still the same for major facilities. If we're naming a park, a building, a street, a bridge, the process would remain the same. The application's received, administration reviews it and writes a recommendation. The ethics committee will review it, and then that request will come before City Council. And so we kept that process the same for secondary facilities, much because of the consistency with it. Although it may not be as prominent, we still want to make sure that is reviewed by the ethics committee with the same criteria and approved by City Council. And then particularly for secondary facilities, if we're naming a tennis court or a garden plot or something, we wanted to have some signage standards in place. So we didn't say there's a standard 3 foot by 5 foot sign or a 2 by 4 foot sign, and this is the language that can go on it. There is some discretion that's left where city staff will be able to say, we feel this would be the appropriate size for a sign, because what's appropriate for a playscape may not be appropriate for a garden plot or something of that sort. So we put in some guidelines to follow, that it has to be appropriate, and then also that it can't turn into, because these are more relatively minor, and I will say inexpensive to implement, the sign itself is limited to the name of the individual, the dates of their birth and death, or the dates of their community service, and there's the service in which they're being recognized for, or both, as well as a brief description of what their contribution was. So not quite what we're talking about for Mr. Leslow or Miss Navarre, but something that at least tells people who the individual was and what their significance was to the community. And then again, the criteria and the eligibility remain unchanged. So any questions about secondary facilities or the criteria or the process?
So, so if we do a sign, so in my mind, I always thought of it as how we have like the historical markers,
Mm-hmm.
and they do tell a brief story.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you mean?
Probably not quite that much, but one of the other things that we could do, if it's a park amenity, what we could do is include a QR code where perhaps on that park's website it talks about the history of that person or something. Because when you think about a tennis court or a park playscape, not necessarily having a sign that obstructs everything but still recognizes that individual, the description, the length of a historical marker would be more like a dedication display.
And so you're adding or dedication, so that would be an application that could be brought forth if you wanted more of a dedication style.
So that would come more with a major facility. So if we're naming a building, if we're going to have a sign at that building describing more in depth why they're such a prominent individual that they have a larger facility or amenity named after them.
I guess I'm still thinking about the Rance Allen group, who meet a lot of these criteria or whatever, but I don't know if you can put it in a little plaque, you know.
So ultimately, that would come down to what are we requesting, in any case, what are we requesting gets named after somebody? So
Right.
if somebody is proposing to name something after a building after them or a park after them,
I was thinking, so this would be a public place because it would be kind of like on a street near, say if it's on the street, the original idea, if it was on the street where they grew up or played music, so that would be in the public.
I see what you're saying. So rather than naming something after them, still having a dedication display that recognizes them separate from naming something after them.
Yeah,
Okay, so that could be something that gets brought up, like a historical marker.
and
If
that was
this,
always how I envisioned it, not really knowing if that's kind of the direction we were gonna go in with it, but that was just whenever I thought about it, I just thought of something of that similar uh, thing. And I forgot my other question, but if I remember it, I'll come back. Thank you.
sure,
Mark, may I for just
Yeah.
a minute? Going along with Kelly's question, and it's something I didn't think about when we were meeting, we may want to, in some instances, talk with the county museum because there may be some times where a county marker may be just as appropriate, and they're not taking anything away from the city recognition, but there just may be some ways, there may be a couple of pieces of recognition for a particular group. So there may be some instances where we would want to have some discussions with
That's
the
a great
county
point.
museum.
And I think when an application would come in, city staff would evaluate those, and we've got a close relationship
Yeah.
with the museum to say, hey, maybe that warrants a historic marker or something of that sort.
Yeah.
Great point.
Well, you asked the question, do we, as the council, think this should be an administrative process and leave the council out? And it came to me that what about the families or agencies or organizations that are making the request? I mean, I know they'll go through the application process, but when you come down to what wording and things like that, did we intend to still include the persons or organization in that process?
Absolutely. I would say that would be part. So when a dedication display is proposed to go along with the naming or otherwise, we certainly don't do it in a vacuum because and I'll give the example when we talk about the Arthur Laszlo and Lillian Navarre, what we've gone through in that process to come up with the copy that's going on that sign. It certainly wasn't myself and Matt Vanasacker working on that by ourselves. We had other people contribute to that, and so we'll get to that portion.
Thank you.
I guess since we're talking about this historical markers and stuff, I mean, there's state historical markers, county markers, and then we're talking about how we might, as a city, place items in, whether it be facilities or dedication display. I just think, we can look around the community and see there's not just one, there's two, and sometimes three. And I think I think to Michelle's point, if we find that there's a connectivity, and there's a process in place, that might be something. I know that there was discussion with Duncanson about where he resided in the city, and as a historical type state or county display. But I know there's more conversation in that. But that was research and know where he resided as he grew up here and then started his career into painting. So how do you where and how do you recognize that? And if there's not a recognition of that's fitting the criteria, and as Kelly says, it's a geographic kind of area, then it might shift from something that's going to be recognized in a correct way. I don't have the answer. I'm just thinking that through. We have others that are, to Michelle's point as well, that have come in over since we started this, and most of their services county related, but they resided in the city. And that's a good conversation, I think, as it comes in. How do we have the process to go in the best direction to meet the organization, family, whoever is asking, and then in maneuvering through that, I think is critical.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, once you're done and all of a sudden then, well, now we're going to go over here and put the second one there. I think that we should try to do this correct the first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And certainly, I think this is reaching a broader discussion about the dedication displays themselves. The dedication display in this policy was meant to accompany a naming of a facility, but if we wanted to have a discussion about those separate from a naming policy, but still an honor recognition opportunity, we can develop some sort of separate process that would be complementary.
I have one more question.
Sure.
Where you put the cost, the endowment and whatnot, would there ever be an occasion where we as a city, an administration or a council would decide that we wanted to honor a person or something, an event or whatever, and then where would those fees come from then?
Oh, certainly. I think if there were ever an opportunity where council or administration wanted to initiate this ourselves, then we would pay those fees. These are more when there are private citizen requests, what those fees associated would be. And ultimately, if there was a request by the applicant to waive those fees because it's your policy, you would always have the opportunity to do that when the request comes before you for approval.
Thank you.
Okay, so great segue moving into fees. So we wanted to put some steps, I guess, or opportunities, because we know putting up a sign on a tennis court per se is not going to be as expensive as purchasing a new monument sign for a building or a new sign for a building or all the processes that go into that, renaming a street. And so we thought it seemed a little bit silly in some instance to have, if we're installing a sign on a playscape that only costs $300, we're going to require a 30% or a 10% or $30 endowment for the maintenance of that sign and all the accounting and bookkeeping that would come along with that. And so what we did, and certainly these are just numbers, City Council, this is your policy, so you have the opportunity to determine these. But what we're recommending is if the cost, when we get the request, if the cost to implement it is going to be more than $2,000 or more, then upfront before we go into the effort of designing and implementing the naming request, then a 50% deposit would be required. And then the remainder would be due at the time when we erect or install or implement the name change. If it's less than $2,000, it would be required upfront because it's a relatively minor process at that point. And also, if it's less than that amount, there is no endowment that's required. However, because they're more smaller in scale for a secondary facility generally, they last longer, but we're not going to guarantee that we're going to replace that if the sign becomes deteriorated, or city would have the ability to say, we're going to, if after 5 years it gets damaged, we're going to go ahead and correct that and replace it free of charge. But rather than require that endowment for lower cost implementation, we remove that requirement, and it would be at the city's discretion of how we handle replacement or repair with that in the future. We thought $2,000 was relatively fair. And if there was an event where something happened and the city had to replace that, $2,000 is relatively minor in the grand scheme of things. Okay, also, the original policy did talk about park amenities. And while the Parks Division didn't have a full policy related to the renaming of playscapes and things of that sort, we have always had in place a bench and tree policy, where if somebody wanted to memorialize or remember a family member or a loved one or a friend or community member, they have the opportunity to purchase a tree or a bench in their honor, and the city would work with them on the location of that. We probably get 5 or 6 of these a year. And so this is a relatively regular practice that we work through. It works great. Families and individuals are relatively happy with it. And so we incorporated that whole policy into this because in our discussions, Clerk Lavoie specifically mentioned there are times outside of parks where somebody may want to plant a tree or commemorate a family member through a bench or something like that. And those requests have come in, or they've been placed from time to time. So we broadened it, took it out of a park policy and put it into the public property policy, specifically for trees and benches. The other thing, we developed some signage standards for this because relatively when you put a marker on a bench, there is limited space. And so we put in, much like for secondary facilities, name, dates, and a brief statement about that individual, but not a full description because those get costly both to implement and to maintain. And so that whole policy has been folded into this public policy as well. So those were the proposed changes. And certainly if you've got any feedback tonight, it's our intent to bring this forward for approval at your next meeting, because we do have at least one renaming request or a naming request that has been waiting to go through the process. So
Mark, I know what you sent out to us had the revisions and that, and I guess if there's additional thoughts, council can get back with the administration, correct? I noticed also as we went through this, the exclusions, renaming, rescind, renewal, there were no changes in there. That was originally written. And as you went over some of the changes regarding the process on secondary facilities and funds. And then the last part was on the benches and trees and how those requests are coming in and not knowing how to deal with them at the time when the policy was first by the committee. It was shifting over to, we thought, of parks, but then as it turned out, there wasn't a complete parks policy in this relationship. And I know that Clerk Lavoie was getting calls on some of these, and it was a sentence we had that just could be, had multiple determinations as you read it. Did it mean it went to the ethics or did not mean it didn't have to go? And I think that clarifies some of that in here where you say when things do go to the ethics. So it's clear in that respect too. Kathy?
I just have one question. You mentioned writing a description, like when something has to be written. Is there a committee that is part of that, and is marketing on that? Because it seems like marketing would be really good about writing copy and.
yeah, so it's a great segue into our next work session discussion, which is the ALCC construction update. We are working right now on an interior display for both Arthur Leslow and Lillian Navarre. How we initiated that, Kohler asked us if we wanted to do it to recognize the individuals who those facilities are named after. And so we worked, our department as well as communications, the Monroe County Historical Museum, the mayor's office had a lot of information. And then also the library system. We gathered up photos, we gathered up all the newspaper clippings and historical documentation. Kohler has taken the first stab at the drafts of those two, and we've shared them with both the library system, the museum, and then ultimately we're going to take that to the ethics committee to make sure that they feel it's appropriate before it gets installed. So certainly it's not a standalone approach, and we consult with a lot of people as we're developing that to make sure that we're incorporating all their history, significance, and doing it in a respectful, and also look at the original reason why the city did take the action to name those facilities after them and what language was used at that time.
So, as you said, through the mayor's office since decades past of information, but I know that Clerk Lavoie and I were doing a research for items that were early 1900s and came across, oddly enough, Arthur Leslow and his work, what was then called the community chest. And that's what it was first called. And that's an old term, goes way back, where somebody starts basically how they get funding for nonprofit, or there weren't the nonprofits, and they partnered with, it won't come to me. So, and that's how he started the community chest, and that was the foundation of how then it got to out of a room to a building to the center, and that's why it's really the start of way back 1920s. So I just remember that, reading that thing. So there may be even things in the minutes of the old council meetings if you have a specific date instead of looking through the whole year like we were looking for something else and hey, look at this. So those are good foundational documents as that, the public may know and may not know, but, why? Why is it that way? Andrew?
Yes, sir. When we talk about dedication displays, it may be appropriate to add monuments and sculptures as part of that, because I know that there's been at least two occasions that have come up. One from a young gentleman in my precinct who's working on a peace monument and wants to erect that, not trying to rename anything. And I know that when we were having discussions at what was going on at the corner of Elm and Monroe about potentially putting up another monument either on site or across from that as well, that would be community funded, not necessarily trying to rename anything.
So those we do, because those don't come in as frequent or as common. When we get those requests, the young man with the peace monument or others, we deal with those individually and then bring that directly to council. The monuments and statues are, I would say, are much more on a case by case. This is when, particularly a naming policy, if somebody is proposing to erect something on city property, we follow a bit of a different channel, I will say, to make sure that those fit the property in which they're located. Are they accurate? Things of that sort. But does that make sense?
Sure.
Other questions? Kelly?
Didn't we have a monument policy before we started off into this naming policy?
I don't believe so. Andrew, do you recall? I don't
Not to
re-
my
I-
recollection.
From the,
no.
when I know we're done.
I do know that when the committee met, we specifically stayed away from trees and benches, leaving that to the Parks Department. If it's it seems like now it's being brought in, but
When Andrew, myself, and John Michelangelo was the committee that met on this, and we got many examples from across the state and elsewhere outside, and
That was
some.
me, Mr.
I'm sorry, Kelly. Yes, and we had that's right. It was you. It was us three. I'm sorry. John was on a different committee with Andrew and I. That was the responsible bidder ordinance. I'm sorry, Kelly. I apologize. It was Kelly and Andrew and I, and we looked at a lot of different information and trying to figure out how it would fit with what we were doing, and we did stay away from that. And I think it was because administration usually gets those if they do.
yeah, I think that
I'm
the,
sorry,
There
Kelly.
was some, maybe the beginnings of a monument policy, and we went totally in a different direction because of what you're stating now.
We did come across some policies that we researched, that you mentioned, as I recall, that were elsewhere. And we just thought it was more of an administration start point. I think part of that is a person says they want to erect a monument or a statue, and then it comes, well, where is that? Where are you going to put it? And what's it's not the zoning, but what is it? Is it fitting within the geographic, as opposed to just placing it somewhere that has? I think that's what this does state in here. When we talk about persons, is not just what they've done. Is there a geographic location of where they were involved within the community? It might be a place, it might be a park, it might be in general, like we did with the Rent Allen item that came in.
And Mayor, with the monuments, one of the when somebody comes to us and says they want to erect a new monument or a new statue, we say, where do you want to put it? Is there a specific piece of city property that you're looking to erect it? Most of the time when it's naming, everybody knows I want to do this amenity or I want to do this facility or something of that sort. But oftentimes what we get, I want to put a monument somewhere in the city. Okay, is it public property? Is it private property? Well, it's private property. Okay, the city doesn't really have a say over that other than site plan and zoning approval. You got to work with the private property owner. If it's public property, city council has the authority on conveying or utilization of city property. And so if they come to us and say, it's this particular spot, then we work through them. What is the specifics of your request? And we'll bring that to city council at that time, because they're much more, I would say, broad than when the naming requests that we get. And certainly I will say we get a lot more naming requests and dedication requests than we get monument requests or statues. Okay.
Other questions?
The nature of the naming requests, are they mostly for trees and benches?
Generally, yes. We probably get about a half dozen of those a year, maybe up to 10. Naming requests, it's probably more like 1 or 2 a year.
Buildings and streets and stuff?
Lately, it's been amenities, so a component within a park.
Okay.
So right now, we've got a request to rename the tennis courts at Munson. And so we felt the policy didn't neatly address that, and so we're updating that, and then that request will come to you.
Some of the requests that's come in the past and in recent is they just want something named, but they don't have a place idea what they're looking for. They just want us to do something. And I think we need more than that. I think to start on start naming or, taking things, we shouldn't be the, selecting what that might be. And so a couple that have recently have called, I just have to say, well, what's your intent of where you want this to be? What is it, to what level do you want it to be? And you're trying to get them into which category within the policy current, but also knowing this was being in draft, that it was changing was one of the comments I provided to a person. But, just can't say, it can name something for this, and then they put it to us to make that decision. I think we need more than that to start with. Even though we may know the person that they're selecting for. But of course, our policy is about being deceased 3 years. Any other questions on this? I think it's a good review, start of where we're going. Again, if there's, as you read through this again after the presentation, if there's information you think is going to be beneficial, please get a hold of Mark or the manager about this. And we can look forward to it again in the future, right?
Yeah. Okay. Next presentation was by request at the last city council meeting, and it is well due. The update on how the construction is going at the ALCC and Navarre Library and Learning Bank facility. And so we went back and looked. The last update that we gave to council was in March. And so to give you a recap, that photo that you see on the screen was taken last week by Amy Moore in the communications office. But you can see the building is now shaped. And so from April to June, so spring and early summer this year, the footings and the foundations were laid. All the underground plumbing was set. The underground electric was set. The elevator shaft was really the first thing that you saw go up because the building is then built around it. And the masonry was installed on the elevator shaft. And then the building envelope that you see here with the steel going up began to take shape. And then the core of the building working out in the shell was also started during that time period. And so July through August, Woody Hoffer provided this picture, which we thought was neat because you can see the texture in the brickwork. It's not just flat brickwork, but there's some three-dimensional components to it. And so the walls started going up with the skin of the building itself. Masonry started going up. I will say a comment. We asked the contractor to start particularly on the west side with the masonry because it was our hope and intent to get the splash pad open for this summer. So we asked them to concentrate on that facade so that we could push the fence in. And unfortunately, it took longer than expected, and so we couldn't safely open the splash pad this summer. But I want to thank the community for being very understanding of why that was the case. And I will say we didn't hear a whole lot of, negative feedback on that. And then also the painting of the exterior and the interior spaces, like the elevator shaft began. The roof curbs were applied, and then the flooring has started to get poured last week, all the concrete floors. So the steel was set and the concrete started going in last week. And so here are some other pictures for you. These were taken on site last week during the owners' meeting. These are on the east side of the building, closer to East Chester Street. if you're kind of standing at the main entrance from the parking lot looking toward East Chester or the courtyard of the Opportunity Center, that's the view that you're looking at right now on the first floor. On the right-hand side is where the stairway is going to be leading up to the second floor once that gets installed toward the Learning Bank property. And then this is in the same position looking toward Labor Park. On the west side of the building, this is going to be more of the dedicated library space where the collections are, the youth area. On the west side, the restrooms are going to be up against that interior brick wall, as well as in the corner where you see the black X in the far corner. That is the space for the restroom for Labor Park that will be accessed from the outside. There is a view where the stairways will go up, right where Woody is standing in the blue shirt and the dark pants. That's Matt Vanasacker to the left inspecting the work being done. Again, weekly meetings that we hold with the contractors and the architect team on site. That's probably from Matt's vantage point, looking up toward where the maker space is going to be on the second floor, the larger open space. And that will all be open looking down, just like you see it now. So the other things that we've had going on, in addition to the construction over the past several months, the picture that you see on the left is actually from the outdoor promenade on the second floor. So the outdoor gathering space is where Woody was standing when he took that picture overlooking Labor Park. And so we have begun having meetings with Nancy Belair, Stephanie Kasperzak, and the new director of the Learning Bank. She joined us last week as we start talking about once everybody moves into the space, when it's completed next spring, how is the space going to be utilized? What are the lease and operating agreements with all those entities going to look like? How are they going to share those facilities? And I will say the meetings have gone exceptionally well. There's a lot of excitement about how everybody's going to use the space when it's open and available. And so a lot of, I guess, nitty-gritty detail that we're working through in terms of who's going to clean the bathrooms, who's going to purchase the toilet paper, who's going to pay the electric bill, and how's that going to be split up in a shared facility. And so all of those agreements we're working through right now probably take several months, and then those will come before you for approval in the near future too. And then we've also been working with ISCG. They're the furniture company that we're ordering all of the furniture and fixtures with. We had gotten an original bid when we started construction, and then unfortunately due to tariffs, all the costs went up. And so we're working through those details. We had a meeting last week about it in terms of what are all the fabrics, what are all the cabinets looking like. And so those discussions are ongoing, including when are we going to order, because right now we couldn't order sooner because we have nowhere to store all of it. And we didn't want it to get eaten by mice or anything by being in any of our storage facilities. So we're ordering in time for it to be placed when the envelope is completed. And then finally, a timeline. Still scheduling for a substantial completion date nearing February or so. And then once the substantial completion is done, meaning the building is pretty much complete, that is when we will begin all the furniture, the fixtures, all the tenants will begin moving back in, preparing for an opening, again, looking March, April-ish, I think. In my meeting last week with the operators, the library, everybody was more excited about April than March, just because the amount of work it's going to take in reading month and library month and things of that sort. A great opportunity for all of us to have a ribbon cutting and celebrate completion. But we are on schedule and everything is going well. And then here are some other views from the second floor. The photo on the left is within those maker spaces that overlook the parking lot toward Labor Park. You can see the outdoor patio space just past the gentleman with the green vest. And that's the view from the inside looking out toward that promenade. And then on the left, you see the Learning Bank space. Or I'm sorry, the far right picture is the learning bank space from the library offices. So that's the update on how things are going. Things are going very well, and knock on wood, we have not had a lot of surprises other than finding some random concrete foundation early on. But that was taken care of, and we moved along.
Questions for Mark at this time? I know we'll have more updates as the meetings continue. Okay.
Thank you.
Andrew?
Ready to move on. I can make a motion.
If, I'll see any other comments on the work session. If not, we'll close the work session. Okay, at this time, I'll close the work session, and we do have some other items here. Councilman Fellner?
Yes, I'll make a motion to enter into closed executive session for the purposes of litigation and land acquisition.
Call the special meeting to order and do the roll yet.
Take a roll
Okay.
call first. Sorry.
That's okay.
It's my fault,
No,
And
no.
and we also, I know that Attorney Buds had provided some information on, we have to say what the litigation items are, but at this time, I'll call to order the city council special meeting. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Biden?
Yes.
Germaini?
Yes.
Hader? Stillgrave? Mayor Clark?
Here. And so, manager, or clerk, I see we have a,
Yes, we have the consideration to enter into closed executive session.
and, do you have it?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so, Councilman Feller, do you have a motion?
Yes, I will make a motion that we enter into closed executive session for the purposes of litigation regarding Jim's Towing, FLP Properties, OFTH 172, Breyer and Brown, and land acquisition.
Support. Motion by Councilman Felder, supported by Councilman Hader to go into closed executive session for the purposes stated for litigation and land acquisition in the cases that were mentioned. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining? Germaini?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Hader? Stillgrave? Mayor Clark?
Yes.
Session?
Motion from Councilman Felder, supported by Councilwoman Stringham. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And we need a motion to close the special meeting.
I'll make a motion to close the special meeting.
Felder and Germaine. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We'll be back in a minute or two here. I know we've got to make stops, and I got to go see people in the hallway. Call the city council meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining? Here. Germaine? Here. Stringham? Here. Felder?
Here.
Hayter? Here. Stillgrave? Here. Mayor Clark?
Here, before we stand for our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance, this evening we have Troop 547. They're sponsored by the River Raisin National Battlefield Foundation and is currently 70 years old this year for their scouts. The Scoutmaster is Dave Nolan, the committee men, Matt West and Mike Schultz. But we have 4 scouts that are with us here this evening. Zach Odell, Senior Scout Hayden Barker, Noah Ivy, and Micaiah Ivy as well. But I'm going to ask that Senior Scout Hayden Barker come forward to the podium. He can lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, after we have her invocation. So Scout, when you come forward, we're going to have her invocation. When the clerk is finished with that, I'll ask you to please lead us, okay? Everybody please stand for the invocation and then followed by the pledge.
Grateful for the many resources of this land and for the freedom which has been its heritage. Inspire all of us to serve with fairness, humility, and integrity, and to work for the welfare of this community.
Scout Barker, if you can call your troops to order, and then we'll do the pledge.
547. Scout salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Two.
Thank you. Before you leave, Hayden, you're here for a purpose this evening, right? As a scout troop, correct? And that is for? Don't you have obligations to attend meetings
Yes,
and?
Yes, we are here to, one for our requirement. One of our requirements for some of our scouts ranks and the lower ranks is to come to a city council meeting of some sort. It's one of the many requirements we have, but it's a great experience. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here. I know it's working through your daily scout obligations, but also it's one of those merits that you have to acquire as you go along as people work toward their Eagle Scout, correct?
Yes, sir.
I thank you for being here, and I thank all the scouts for being here, and the leadership of those that volunteer and bringing scouts forward. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is the approval of the regular agenda.
Motion to approve the regular agenda.
Motion by Councilman Hayter, supported by Councilwoman Stringham to approve the regular agenda. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vining?
Yes.
Jermaine? Yes. Stringham?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Hayter?
Yes.
Steelgrave?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is the consent agenda, and I just want to make a note, the approval of the minutes on the work session meeting minutes, there was a typo in item 5417, one of the presenters' names should read George Woda, W-O-D-A. So if we could I just wanted to note that. And then the approval of payments to vendors, the amount should read $2,952,893.87, 2952-893.87.
Thank you. Are there any items on the consent agenda that council wishes to have pulled for further discussion? Any items from city council that wish to have pulled for further discussion? Seeing none, are there any items on the consent agenda those present here this evening wish to have pulled for further discussion? I see a few new faces, so if there's an item on the consent agenda, they get passed collectively in one vote. If there's an item that's on the consent agenda that you're here specifically that you'd like to talk about this evening, that's the first 4 or 5 items, now would be the time to ask to have it pulled, that it be brought to the end of the council meeting. So I'll ask again, any items on the consent agenda those present here this evening wish to have pulled for further discussion? Seeing none, motion to approve the consent agenda with the amendment. Councilman Felder.
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to make a motion to approve that all items on the consent agenda be accepted, placed on file, recommendations carried out, and resolutions adopted.
Motion from Councilman Felder, supported by Councilwoman Germaine, that all items on the consent agenda be accepted, placed on file, recommendations carried out, and resolutions adopted. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining?
Yes.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Stringham?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Hayter? Stillgrave?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is under presentations, communications, and public hearings. It's item 5437, Opportunity Center at ALCC, draft budget for fiscal year 2025-2026.
Manager Robinson, is this a communication from the Opportunity Center?
Yes, Your Honor, this is just a draft budget as they complete their draft process or their budget process later at the end of the month, but based on our agreement with them, they provide that in this meeting. And so it's just for your review and it'd be part of the council packet.
So no action from council, it's just a communication we're receiving. The clerk will have it on file, and if there's conversations from council, we'll have them at our next opportunity that comes forward, correct?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is item 5449, communication from Omar Furden.
Manager Robinson, similar item here.
Similar item, it's a communication letter requesting to have a change in our charter. And it was a communication by Mr. Furden with his stance and what he would like to be changed. Unfortunately, I think that because it is too late to be on any kind of a election this year, that it will be part of our packet and be an item for council consideration moving forward.
So council has the communication, and so what I'm hearing from the manager, and I think the clerk also has pointed out, there's a time frame when we ask, people at times ask us to make changes to the city charter, something that they themselves can get a petition to do, or they ask the council to consider that. However, the timeline, as was stated, is past in which something could be on the next ballot. So this will be something that'll be, if comes forward in the future from Mr. Furden, it'll come to the sitting council after the first of the year, whoever that may be sitting here. So if there's any questions on that, I guess contact the administration regarding that. And I'm sure that I don't see Mr. Furden here this evening, but if he gets communication to that respect, that would be appropriate if we could send that. Thank you. Clerk, next item, please.
Next item is item 5448, presentation by International Wildlife Refuge Alliance.
Thank you. Manager Robinson, we have a presentation this evening.
We do, Your Honor, and I have been asked by Director Cochran to be able to introduce our next guest, Mr. Gary Kirsch, and that'll be, Mark will have the opportunity to introduce him.
Thank you. Mr. Cochran.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, Clerk Treasurer Lavoie. So in your packet this evening, there was a bit of information about the wildlife refuge, but we often boast that we in Monroe have something that nowhere else in North America can say that they have. And that's the fact that converging in one location in our city, we have a state park, an international wildlife refuge, a national park, a Great Lake, and a river converging in one location. And we hear a lot about the national park, and of course, we're all familiar with the state park and the River Raisin, but we wanted to take an opportunity to share a little bit more about the Detroit River International Wildlife Refuge, particularly the two units that are within the city of Monroe, the Port of Monroe unit, as well as the Ford Marsh unit, that are immediately adjacent on the east and the west side of I-75. But also highlight the fact that the International Wildlife Refuge was started by the late Congressman John Dingell in 2001 and today protects over 6,200 acres in the United States as well as our friends in Canada, and more than half of that is in Monroe County. And so I don't want to steal Gary's thunder, but Gary Kirsch is with ITC, but he's also the board chair for the International Wildlife Refuge Alliance, which is the nonprofit friends group that helps support the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in advancing their mission relative to the International Wildlife Refuge. So, Gary? Just use the arrow buttons to go back.
I appreciate it.
Welcome, Gary.
Thank you, Mayor. It's certainly a privilege to stand before you. In a past life before I worked for ITC, I served as the township supervisor at Macomb County. So I understand that the privilege and honor it is to stand on your side of the desk, and I appreciate what you do for this community as well as what other individuals do for serving on other boards. As Mark had mentioned, I am the chairperson of the International Wildlife Refuge Board. I also have the opportunity to serve on the River Raisin Foundation Board. So it's an honor to stand before you because I know that this board supports and contributes to history as well as civic places And so with that, I wanted to make sure I had the opportunity to be able to come before you. Mark did an excellent job of giving us an overview of what the International Wildlife Refuge is. What I stand before you tonight for is we have a challenge. We're going to different communities. One, to introduce ourselves. The second is to give awareness that we have a fundraiser coming up, an annual benefit dinner. And what we're calling it this year is a community invitation and challenge. And we want to share some information regarding the International Wildlife Refuge. This is an opportunity for individuals. Some community parks are things that you have to have a sticker, you have to have an entrance fee, and it's open to anybody that wishes to purchase that. We're very fortunate at the International Wildlife Refuge that as long as the hours of operation are open, you can come visit. We have a 500-foot, in excess of 500-foot fishing pier. There's a visitor center. And so those are opportunities for individuals that if they just happen to be in the area, they can stop by. If we are open Thursday through Sunday, you can stop into the visitor center. And we have the visitor center where there's exhibits going on, as well as a store that you can buy kind of unique little items that are either tailored directly to our refuge or just the refuge and nature in general. But the Detroit International Wildlife Refuge is the only wildlife refuge in North America, as Mark had mentioned. We are very proud of that status and very proud that John Dingle was a very staunch supporter of this and got a lot of the things done in his lifetime. We, myself, represent the Friends Group, the nonprofit arm that we can go out and do the fundraising and try to get in community support that the actual employees are not able to do. You've probably watched TV, read newspapers. This has been a difficult budget year for the refuge, and it is for us to go out and do an extra effort to make sure that we can support those individuals that work on the refuge. We're very fortunate to have some very dedicated individuals. And our mission is always to support them through their mission. We do Hawk Watch, we do different environmental educational programs through schools, as well as individuals bringing schools as in community groups out to the refuge. For our specific purposes tonight is an introduction to the refuge, but also on September 25th, we have from 5:30 to 9 o'clock, we have our annual benefit dinner. This is the 19th annual benefit dinner fundraiser. It is our largest fundraiser that we have for the year. And this is basically our operations come out of this fundraising. So our success at this fundraiser is the success for our year. As you can imagine, previous to this thing we called in 2020, a little epidemic that we went through, we were getting in excess of 400 people. Last year, we were probably at 250 and felt pretty good about that because we were up from what we were the year before. But we would like to get back to our 400 number that gives us some cushion in our budget that we can do more things and support the refuge on initiatives that they have. The location is Silver Shores Waterfront. I know the mayor, I know our clerk has been there. I see other individuals that I've crossed paths at the refuge before and at different events in this community. So I thank you for the support you've previously given. The highlights of the event is we have our refuge manager will give you a highlight on what's taken place that year, the initiatives that we have going forward, property that we may have been able to acquire throughout the year, as well as initiatives that they are looking to do. And that's where some of the funding that we're doing will be able to do that. And a couple years ago, we purchased a Marshmaster for them. If you've not seen that, it looks like a engine or motor-driven Swiss Army knife. You can do so many things with this. We can actually go into wetlands, and they can work on Phragmites. They can do control of different invasive species. And it's through the fundraising that we did, as well as grants, and that we were able to acquire this funding. So there are very hands-on. It's not just going to administration, where some people have that concern, well, you're just having a fundraiser so you can have more administration. Ours is a volunteer board, and we have one individual that runs the store and one individual that's our executive director. So we keep things pretty tight, and we try to keep things so that the money's going back into the system. We have our 5-year strategic plan that we're also going to unveil during the event, and we're very excited about that because we have a lot of initiatives that we think that are going to set us into the next 5 years that are going to put us the ability for fundraising, as well as for some of the initiatives that we have that are going to actually put the refuge on the path forward. We, as I previous stated, we have 400 seats that we would like to sell out. We have a goal of raising $75,000. We've fallen short of that the last couple of years, but we've put in an extra push out to try to get back up to that. I have some brochures that I'll leave for you. Individuals can purchase seats for themselves, or if you have businesses or individuals, you can also purchase a table or other sponsorship levels to be able to be involved in the process, and you will be you will be recognized during the event. We also have this community challenge. We're going around to the communities, and when after the annual benefit dinner, we're going to have a newsletter, and we're going to have in there a notation of the individuals that have attended from each of the communities. So hopefully get a little bit of competition between each communities to see which community we have in this downriver area who have attended and supported the refuge. Mrs. Dingle is always in attendance, and we have other elected officials that show up to make sure that they also show their support. Sorry, I clicked too many times. We have the opportunity, as I stated, I'll leave these, but you can buy individual tickets. You can also do sponsors. And those sponsorships, we have some companies and corporations that say, well, we really don't have individuals that want to attend, or we can't fill a table of 8. If you donate those tables back, we'll give them to volunteers. We also give them to some of the charities that have worked in the refuge throughout the year. And then they can also use those tickets to have their attendees or individuals from their organizations attend. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them tonight. If I don't have the answers, I will certainly get them back to you. And that we have Joanne Gagne, one of our IRA board members. She's the one that set up our presentation. So if you have any questions for her, we can certainly get back to you regarding the dinner as well as any sponsorships we have. I thank you for your time, and I hope I didn't take more time than I was supposed to be allotted, but I certainly appreciate standing before you tonight. And if I have any questions tonight or in the future, please tell me.
Gary, before you go, I see if there's any questions, but I have to say that, we look about the International Wildlife Refuge. A lot of people think of the facility that's in Wayne County, but as we know, and council knows, and I think many of our residents know, but as you go along East Elm Avenue before you get to where the freeway is, that's the part of the International Wildlife Refuge, which is in the city proper here. And it adjoins, of course, the National Battlefield Park property, and that the foundation that you serve on as well manage with. So I know Mr. Cochran gave the can't find this anywhere else, but just because we're separated from the Wayne County, we are still part of the International Wildlife Refuge, and what we do here supports not only there, but comes back and supports what we're trying to do as we talk about our corridor plan in the national park and all the efforts that over the years since the national park was established here in the city of Monroe. So I just want to thank you for your presence. If there's any specific question for Mr. Kirsch from council. If not, your information is here in the packet, and we'll have the opportunity to reach out if we wish to do so.
Thank you. And I appreciate your comments, because we look at the refuges not having certain boundaries. The refuges for everybody throughout this county, as well as other counties in the surrounding area. We also go to Macomb County and talk to them about the value of this. And the idea of having, if you've ever been on the fishing pier, the thing that means so much to me, it's nice to be out there for recreation, but there's individuals that actually use that fishing pier for subsistence. They're out there fishing, and that's what they're feeding their families with. And that's the thing that probably hits me most, that it's not just a place for recreation, that people are actually using it, not just from Wayne County. It's amazing how far people have come to go fishing there because they know that the opportunities that they have. So thank you for your
and
time.
Being an International Wildlife Refuge, you can't forget about our friends and our partners that are across the water there on the Canadian side as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is under council action, item 5436, demolition bid award for 211 Winchester Street.
Robinson, introduction.
Property at 211 Winchester Street. It's not a property that is unfamiliar with us at the city, but the property was foreclosed by the county treasurer due to delinquent taxes this past year. Following the foreclosure and in discussion with the county treasurer, and based on our inspection, the property was deemed uninhabitable, and it went up for auction in August and no one purchased it. So the city and the county treasurer have executed a memorandum of understanding to be able to split the cost of the demolition. And once the demolition is completed, we're going to pay for it, and then we will invoice the county for the second half of the demolition cost.
Thank you. I know that as you stated, it's a conversation that's been before the council here in the past, as well as work sessions. Any questions for Mr. Robinson? If not, this is an action item motion from council.
Your Honor, if I could make one comment.
Sure.
On this one, I also want to make clear that the ownership is with the county at this point. I have had communication from the former property owner who seems to believe that it's still the city that owns it. Obviously, we have had long litigation with her, but I thought appropriate to say in front of all of you and on the record here that that's a property that's owned by the county by virtue of the county tax foreclosure process.
I appreciate that because at times calls come to individual council members as well, and be advised that the county doesn't own it, but we know by the process that they do. And if the person does call the former owner, please direct them to the county.
And I'll say to that point, I've tried to return her contact on several occasions to my office. Her voicemail box is full. I'll just say for descriptive purposes, she left a message for me at 5 a.m. on Sunday morning. We have tried to send her correspondence. She's alleged that she is continuing to reside at the property. We've sent communication to her at the property. That's come back is that she is not residing there.
Thank you. If there's no questions from council, a motion would be in order. Councilwoman Germaini.
I'll make a motion, move that council award the bid for the demolition of 211 Winchester Street in a total amount of $19,730, plus an additional 15% contingency in the amount of $2,959.50, for a total amount not to exceed $22,689.50, be issued to David C. Hoffman and Sons Incorporated, and authorize the building official to execute the necessary agreements on behalf of the city and invoice the county treasurer for the associated demolition costs.
Motion by Councilwoman Germaini, supported by Councilwoman Stringham on item 5436, the demolition bid award for 211 Winchester Street. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining? Yes. Germaini?
Yes.
Stringham? Yes. Felder?
Yes.
Hayter?
Yes.
Stilgrave? Yes. Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is 5450, the November 2025 election early voting, and this item establishes that.
Mr. Robinson, but then maybe I should look at the Clerk Treasurer Lavoy.
I'll let the clerk explain.
Thank you, Clerk.
So City Manager Robinson has been very supportive of this. We had a conversation early in the year, and basically while it's not required to have early voting in non-state and federal elections, clerks do have the option of offering it. So we would like to offer it to our residents who took advantage of it during the 24 election, give them the opportunity, if they so choose, to do it again prior to our November election. So we would set the dates. It would be more limited, understanding we probably won't get as much participation, but it's an opportunity for those that would like to. It provides access to those who may not be able to come on election day. It also provides opportunities for those who have absentee ballots but want to put it in the tabulator themselves. That will be offered to them again as well during these hours. 8 to 4, October 31st and November 1st, so the Friday and the Saturday, and it will be staffed by election inspectors. So we're asking, per the state of Michigan, that the body of the city approves this resolution and therefore establishes the early voting for 2025.
If there's any questions for the clerk, if not, a motion would be in order. Councilman Hayter.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution enabling the City of Monroe Clerk Treasurer's Office to conduct early voting for the City of Monroe registered voters at City Hall, 120 East First Street, Monroe, Michigan, on October 31st and November 1st, preceding the November 4th city election.
Motion by Councilman Hayter, supported by Councilwoman Stilgrave on item 5450, the November 2025 election early voting. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Biden? Germaini?
Yes.
Stringham? Yes. Felder?
Yes.
Hayter?
Yes.
Stilgrave? Yes. Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is item 5443, schedule special meeting for 75 Scott Street redevelopment approvals.
Manager Robinson.
Yes, Your Honor, this along with the following two items after that are simply us scheduling a special meeting that we brought to your attention that we would be looking to have on September 29th. And if there's any confusion on what was sent out previously, we'd like that meeting to be at 6:30 p.m. on Monday, September 29th. And this is for us to be able to go over three separate things that has to do with the redevelopment approvals that are necessary. And I know we'll have to go each agenda item by each agenda item, but as the overview, I think it's important because they do have a deadline with the bid person that we're working through with all the property acquisition stuff that we're doing with the county and the lease and all of that. They have a deadline for a time frame for them to be able to submit for their funding request. And so that's why we've asked this council humbly to convene a special meeting on September 29th in order to hear these items and have the public hearings so that we can move this project forward.
Very well. Just a comment here is our last work session. We had the presentation of our previous 2 weeks, or maybe it's 3 now because it's a new month. But the presentation was on this. And we had an understanding there that the timeline was really tight for the process and things that need to be done. So therefore, the need for the special meeting. And of course, then the 2 steps that are being included are to follow after this item. Any question on scheduling the special meeting? If not, a motion would be, Councilwoman Stringham?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, move to schedule a special meeting on Monday, September 29th, 2025 at 6:30 PM in the City Council chambers for the purpose of conducting public hearings as set forth in the following agenda items 5454 and 5453. Support.
Motion by Councilwoman Stringham, supported by Councilwoman Germaine on item 5443, schedule special meeting for 75 Scott Street redevelopment approvals. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining? Yes. Jermaine?
Yes.
Stringham?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Hader? Stilgrave? Mayor Clark?
Next item, please.
The next item is item 5453, scheduling of the public hearing for the PUD amendment and preliminary plan for 75 Scott Street redevelopment.
As was already mentioned by Manager Robinson, this is part of what we discussed previously, as well as the items that need to be included in the meeting. It was just, special meeting, it was just scheduled. So if there's no questions, that'd be, Councilman Hader?
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to make a motion to schedule a public hearing at the special meeting scheduled for Monday, September 29th, 2025 at 6:30 PM to receive and review comments pertaining to the proposed updates to the Scott Street PUD and Woda Cooper Company's preliminary site plan for proposed redevelopment of 75 Scott Street, parcel 39-00497-000, 317 East First Street, parcel 39-00526-000, and 60 Wadsworth Street, parcel number 39-00525-000.
Second.
There's a motion by Councilman Hader, supported by Councilwoman Stilgrave on item 5453, to schedule the public hearing for the Plan Unit Development Amendment and Preliminary Plan for 75 Scott Street redevelopment. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining? Yes. Jermaine?
Yes.
Stringham?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Hader? Stilgrave? Mayor Clark?
Yes.
The next item is item 5454, schedule public hearing for proposed ordinance for payment in lieu of taxes.
It was already this, unless Manager Robinson?
It's the same development, and what this particular public hearing will be in regards to their application to you as a pilot payment in lieu of taxes in order to do and part of the financing for this development.
And of course, with the pilot comes the ordinance that comes with that. We have these scheduled in the special meeting as well.
Yes.
Any questions from council? If not, a motion to, on this action item.
Your Honor.
Councilman Stringham?
Move to schedule a public hearing at the special meeting scheduled for Monday, September 29th, 2025 at 6:30 PM in council chambers to receive and review comments on a proposed payment in lieu of taxes pilot ordinance for the proposed development occurring for the proposed redevelopment of 75 Scott Street, parcel 39-00497-000, 317 East First Street, parcel 39-00526-000, and 60 Wadsworth Street, parcel 39-00525-000.
Support.
Motion by Councilwoman Stringham, supported by Councilman Hayter on item 5454, to schedule the public hearing for the proposed ordinance for a payment in lieu of taxes. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining?
Yes.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Stringham? Felder? Hayter?
Yes.
Stillgrave? Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is item 5452, consideration of purchase agreement amendment with Monroe County for 60 Wadsworth Street.
Thank you. Manager Robinson.
Yes, Your Honor, at our last August 18th meeting, you approved the purchase agreement between us and the county for our purchasing of the 60 Wadsworth Street parking lot. On the 19th, that went in front of the Monroe County Board of Commissioners. They also approved the agreement. However, they did make in the motion, they did want the motion to add and to amend the agreement to add a first right of refusal should this current deal that we're working on not go through. The city would still own it, but if we were to ever sell it to the next, the county would have first right of refusal. And we didn't see a problem with that. Attorney Buds had gone through and wrote the language. And I think now we're just waiting on your approval for that to move forward.
So if I understand correctly, we have a pending agreement that we're working on. The county is part of this also agreement regarding the transfer sale of property to us. If the project we're working through doesn't come to fruition, and somebody else wants to purchase it, the county has the first right to purchase before, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, just want to make sure that it's clear for all. Any questions from council on the amendments, the change? So, Councilwoman Stillgrave.
Motion that the city council approve the amended purchase agreement with Monroe County for the property located at 60 Wadsworth Street and authorize the mayor and city and the clerk treasurer to execute the necessary agreements on behalf of the city.
There's a motion by Councilwoman Stillgrave, supported by Councilwoman Germaine on item 5452, consideration of purchase agreement amendment with Monroe County for 60 Wadsworth Street. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining?
Yes.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Stringham? Felder? Hayter? Stillgrave? Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
There are no further items this evening.
So we're at council comments. Councilwoman Vining, it is September.
No comment this, Your Honor. Thank you.
Very good. Councilwoman Germaine.
Thank you, Your Honor. So now it's safe to say that the kayak launch is really open. I'm very happy that we can enjoy the kayak launch down at Hellenberg Field. And also, I want to remind everybody that school started, and please abide by the laws and watch out for the school buses and those little kids that are walking around them. That's all, Your Honor.
Councilwoman Stringham.
I would like to say that I happily enjoyed Hellenberg kayak launch. So Sunday I was able to go out and use it. If you haven't checked it out, it is very easy to use. It's the accessible piece of it is just probably one of the best kayak launches in this area. There is so much to that river in that area too. We went 2 miles and did not go all of the edges that we could have. So get out there and enjoy. And I also want to say congratulations to everybody for getting through summer and now back to school. I'm wishing everybody a really good fall and a good school year.
Thank you. Councilman Felder.
Well, I hope that everyone was able to enjoy their Labor Day. I know there was quite the festival downtown over the weekend. That was wonderful, and the parade as well. I know a lot of people got out to that, and that looked to be a pretty successful event in terms of turnout. So it was wonderful that that sort of stuff can continue to happen in the downtown. And then, of course, just to join my colleagues in wishing all the parents and teachers and students back to school. So that's all I have this evening, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hayter.
Thank you. I would just like to thank everybody that did come down for the AFL-CIO's Labor Day Parade and Festival. It was definitely the best one we've had so far, and looking to continue to grow that. And I want to thank the city for their partnership, and a special thank you to Public Safety and DPW. We wouldn't have been able to pull all that off without them. So thank you.
Councilman Stillgrave.
I would have to say you did a very great job on putting together that event. It was a lot of fun, and We videotaped that parade too. And also I wanna, the kids have a good school year. That's all I got.
Thank you. Just a couple items or few. Just the Leadership Monroe kickoff is this week through the Monroe County Business Alliance that has a variety of business and nonprofits and leaders within our community that will go through the spring of 2026. I know that the city of Monroe has 2 participants attending in the Leadership Monroe class, and so as we get them through the start, maybe they'll come and tell us at the conclusion how it was beneficial to them, not only with the networking and what the Leadership Monroe program is about, but also their future. Event coming up, the Monroe County Spirit Awards, the Monroe County Museum on Wednesday, September 10th at Territorial Park from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's Wednesday the 10th. This is where they recognize members within our community for their work efforts and partnership and volunteerism, and they call it the Spirit Awards. I was able to go last year. It was very informative, and to learn some of the things what people are doing within the county museum process. We received our weekly road watch this week from Mr. Lewis. Just a couple items I want to touch on because they've talked about here at the meeting from people who have come and talked with us and needs, just so council, but also those that are listening and here understand. 3rd Street reconstruction continues. It's a significantly large task, and I know that the Councilwoman Vining and has talked about it, and as have others. I appreciate the patience of the residents, but as I was by there actually yesterday and saw that, you know, the pathway that to get to the conclusion and getting the cement poured in, and it's from Winchester to Conant on 3rd Street. Significantly large project, especially with the locations around the railroad tracks. So that's moving forward. The 7th Street, the railroad crossing is closed, and it may be getting open soon, but getting that repaired because we've received significant amount of calls over the last month. And it was fortunate that CSX came back and is getting that done. I know they're working on others as well in the region. The Labor Day Parade and Festival was on the list, and I want to give Councilman Hayter, from his role with his position with the AFL-CIO, did a great job on the parade. It was a great parade. Afterwards, is the festivities and with the shout concert. You know, it was a lot of people in the Loringer Square, and I think it's a great place to have such an event. So I want to thank you for your efforts. Obviously, I know probably at times it was very strenuous, but your organization of the event, it went very well. And he might have got a little tired. I don't know. So the last one is because we've had residents that were here, and the Arbor Avenue resurfacing. It's a project that started with the, I'll say, underground construction with one contractor, and the contractor that needed to come and do the roads. I'll say they are back in our community and doing the work. I was down there today, and I saw that they were putting up the barriers, and they had trucks down there, and they are working. I saw another trucks coming through the community to get there to service that project. So we're thankful for that, and I appreciate the residents giving us their thoughts, which helps us when we do make calls like that. Not only did that get done, but you can see St. Mary's parking lot is the same company, is also tearing that up for resurfacing. The parking lot behind the old Masonic Temple, which of course is the trading post and wine and beer portal, that's done. There's a parking lot that's out at Munson Park that's also part of this project being done. So we're getting a lot of work done here as we get close to the end of the season, but these are the kind of projects that get done along with the sidewalks that are GV is also doing. So I just want to say that all this work, I know that there's inconvenience, but I think in the end, that when we get it done, it'll be well worth it. And I want to thank the work being done in Arbor this week. I think I'll stop there. Clerk Treasurer Lavoie.
All right, I'm going to see if I can pull something up here. Work. I did not warn the control booth, but there it is. I just wanted to bring everyone up to date on where we are with the I Voted sticker contest. Much like the early voting, which happens in even years, there are a lot of I Voted sticker contests in the even years as well. But we felt this was a great opportunity with the city election to have our young folks, ages 5 to 18, participate and join us in the spirit of voting, even if they're not quite there voting-wise yet in terms of age. To qualify, you must be a City of Monroe resident or attend a school here in the City of Monroe. The QR code is there for those watching on YouTube, watching along. You can scan that, and it will take you to our voting sticker site online. We also have handouts that we're gonna, I know Kelly Vining is using it at the library. I've forwarded it to a number of institutions that work with children, so hopefully they'll get it out there, and then we will have them at our front desk, our front counter as well. The contest ends September 28th, and then the winners will be announced on October 20th, and they'll be reproduced and handed out to all City of Monroe voters when they come for early voting, as well as on election day. And if you're an AV voter and you really want one, we can probably make that happen as well. I think they're going to be a hot ticket, so. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Before we go to Manager Robinson, I also want to thank Troop 547 for their attendance here this evening. And we wish you the best moving forward, whether it's in all your movement toward the citizenship awards, recognition, and of course your hopefully Eagle Scouts that we're looking at back there someday soon. I know it's a lot of time, a lot of effort, but it's well rewarded. And thank you for being here and leading us in our Pledge of Allegiance. Manager Robinson?
I have no comments tonight.
Okay, no comments. Next is citizens' comments. So at this time, if there's anybody present here that wishes to speak, you'd come to the podium, please. State your name and jurisdiction of residence. And at the same time, be mindful of the rules of the chamber for 3 minutes, if you could. So any comments from those present here this evening? Yes, sir. Please come forward.
Thank you. Daniel R. Gettner, resident, or I reside at, and I own the property at 1087 North Monroe Street, Monroe, Michigan, 48162. As I was here a couple weeks ago opposing the sidewalk extension out North Monroe Street, and I'd just like to add a couple more things. 3 specific areas. Public safety, I'm sure the city and the council and everyone tries to provide all services in the safest way possible. I have some grave concerns about 2 issues. One is what already exists is sidewalks extending from the north end of St. Joseph Cemetery through Sylvan. They veer to the right and for probably about 20 feet physically abut the highway. I think that's a real serious danger to pedestrians. Number 2 is, if I understand the plan correctly, it's to continue from Stockton through Stedman, but not traverse the Mason Run. Again, I think not doing the Mason Run, if you're actually going to do this, provides real safety problems. Putting a sidewalk there obviously is going to encourage people to use it. And when they get to the Mason Run, what do? My opinion, they're either going to jaywalk or road walk, both of which I believe are illegal and would put pedestrians in great danger and would increase the liability to the city because you knowingly are doing this. Number 2 is fiscal responsibility. By moving the project to the east side of Monroe Street, you eliminate the Mason Run headache and probably thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars of more expense to the taxpayers. Number 3 is business friendly. On the east side of Monroe Street, there are approximately 30 businesses that would be served better if you extend the sidewalks out that direction. On the west side, there's 2. I realize we're talking about a cooperative effort with Frenchtown Township. I don't know about that. I think everything is doable if the will is there to do it. So as I did a couple weeks ago, I would encourage you to stop the project as it exists, consider all the current data that's been presented to you, basically by myself, and consider alternatives. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Other comments from those present here this evening? Other comments? Please step forward.
Elliot James, 633 Stone Street. I'd like to commend the mayor and the whole board, treasurer, for all the work that they be doing civically with a good and proper area, because I look on the television and see our places up north where the mayor and the chief of police resigning and scandals. There's no scandals here, and y'all work together very well. And I'd like to say I commend you. Plus, I'm still working on that bike path. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. James. Appreciate it so much. Other comments from those present here this evening? Further comments from those present? Seeing none, need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Councilman Germaine, supported by Councilman Hayter to adjourn. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining?
Yes.
Germain?
Yes.
Yes. Felder?
Yes.
Peter? Stegray? Yes. Mayor Clark?
Yes. And thank you all for being here this evening. And Scouts, if you have questions, you're welcome to approach any of the council members or myself or the clerk if you have questions about this evening. Thank you all.